Welcome everyone to today's Let's Talk Solutions on Applications. A couple of housekeeping items. We will be recording today's presentation and you'll be able to find this and previous ones on NPAC's knowledge base. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We have team members monitoring your questions and we'll make time at the end to discuss some of them live. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Amy Strom, the Director of Client Success here at NPAC, and I'm joined with Jill Byrne, our Senior Solutions Engineer, who will be presenting. Today's webinar will talk about NPAC's applications functionality, as well as the applicant experience. We'll cover how to build applications, as well as processing them in GE NXT. We should have time at the end to cover the questions that aren't covered during the presentation. Before we have Jill jump in, I'd like to quick touch on how our applications can help you power your philanthropy. You'll find our forms very flexible. You can enforce specific fund requirements such as budgets or other financial documentation, or use them to meet various grant deadlines. And they're very efficient. We make reviewing efforts, including sharing and downloading all attachments quick and easy. And you can set applications to be auto-approved or review them one at a time, depending on your processing requirements. Your applicants can save their applications and return to submit when they're ready and have all the required information ready. They are simple. Our application form creator is simple to use. No web programming skills are needed. Anyone in your organization can build a form and make it available on the Spectrum web portal. You can also create a library of standard form fields, which can be used within application forms over and over. Our forms can accommodate all the various requirements. So with that, let's get started. So Jill, take it away.
Sure. Go ahead and advance the slide for me. Thank you. We'll start off with taking a look at the life cycle, and the diagram that you're seeing here overviews the competitive grant life cycle and the various phases within. For this presentation today, we'll be reviewing items within GE NXT that support the first portion of the diagram: prepare and release, applicant support, and then briefly touch on due diligence and review. So we're very pleased to announce new training courses that are in the works and soon will be available within NPAC's on-demand training library, probably within the next few months. These courses will support this entire competitive grant lifecycle. Go ahead and advance. So let's take a moment to kind of dig into the competitive grant process. That starts off with that application being filled out by the applicant on the web portal. That application comes into GE NXT for processing. Typically, there's a review period. We talk to a lot of organizations, and that tends to be unique for your organization with regards to maybe it's internally, maybe you have review committees that need to score individual pages. Whatever your review process happens to be, impact, make sure that GE NXT supports those. And we'll touch on a few as we're going through. If by chance that application is declined, you can use the processing wizard to do that in bulk, and also to send the decline letters all in one nice set of clicks. If approved, you'll create the proposal record from that submitted application. And it's that proposal record that you'll attach workflow to that includes such things as creating the grant, and then also any supplemental pages or follow-up. Maybe you have a report that's required by the receiver of the grant. They have to come back into the web portal. That also is part of that workflow, and we'll see that today. It's really neat to be able to assign workflow tasks to the web applicant. And that helps keep everything on task. You can access individual proposal records and process directly, or use batch functionality to do that in bulk, and we'll see that today. Once the grant record is generated, so are the payments. When due, those payments are loaded onto a check run and sent to your financial system for award distribution. So that's the process, soup to nuts. We'll take a look at a lot of these various features today. So on that note, I'm going to take over sharing. And we'll see it in action here. Okay. Quick thumbs up from my team members, or has everybody seen my sample version of Spectrum? Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay. So what we're looking at here is, I thought I'd start with the lens of the grant applicant. So the experience that they have out on your web portal. Of course, everybody's web portal has been configured for your organization. Mine's just a sample, so yours may appear completely different, but the functions are the same. So what can our grant applicant do? When they log into Spectrum, they can do things like have access to their dashboard and be able to see any alerts, their recently accessed, any featured applications. This is driven by your organization, so you can promote applications that you want applicants to see right away. And then they also, of course, can have things like Twitter feeds and announcements and things like that. So let's go into the available grant directory here. And this, of course, is driven by your organization with regards to which grant application forms you want to make available. All the narratives on here are completely configurable by your staff. You can also put on periods of time, so have it so that they have beginning and end dates, and we'll see all those types of abilities today. And then also be able to close an application and yet still have it appear out there if you want to still have it be listed, even though it's not currently taking. Maybe somebody wants to remember that for a future time. So the grant applicant can go in and see those available. Any of those that they're working on, as you heard Amy mention, that's one of the nice things about the web portal is they can come back in and take a look at their application forms. And this one here, such as I have, that just simply says created, means that I'm still in process with that one. I haven't sent it in yet. Versus this one says processed, meaning I have finished it. I have submitted it to the organization and they have finished processing. So of course, this is really nice for the grant applicant to come back in and view that history. Any of their awards that they were awarded. So once the proposal has been approved, they can come in at any time and see that status, their awards. If they've already been issued awards, they can come here and take a look at the details. And then of course, we could have supplemental pages, and we're going to get into this in a few moments. Many of you have already created applications, and so you might be familiar with using the different types of pages. Different types of pages include supplemental pages. Those are triggered based on the workflow. And again, we're going to look at that in a few moments. And in this case, I have like a 6-month check-in or a follow-up report that the applicant needs to fill out and submit as required for their grant. So how do we make all that work? Let's jump into GE. All right, so I want to start off with talking about that process. Let's just finish that. Once the applicant has submitted their application form, it will show up under online apps, submitted proposal apps. Again, today we're just talking about grants, competitive grants. We'll have future showcases where we'll show off how to do scholarships. But today we're going to hone in on specifically proposals or grant applications. From this screen, so this is all of the applications that have been submitted. From down here in our grid, you can see all of those and the various statuses. By default, the system is going to filter out those that are just simply created. Again, those are the ones that the applicant has opened and they're working on, but they haven't sent it in yet. So by default, the system will filter those out, but you can certainly bring those in also by removing that filter. Some really neat things that happen here on this screen that we just added with our latest release. Let me click on a few of these so that you can see some features that are going to open up down here at the bottom of the screen, such as being able to process these in bulk. So we can create the proposal records, as you saw with that workflow. That's kind of the next step. After we review them, we then turn them into proposal records, because right now they're simply just applications. I can also decline from here and be able to send that correspondence and let all of the applicants know that they were not approved. I can set these to reviewed in one click and promote them. These do not have end dates on them or periods of time, but you can also expire them. So what that means is, we often get questions about that. If let's say the applicant out on Spectrum has the application open and they're working on it, so that's going to be under the created, but the period of time, that open application period, has ended. So they kind of missed the boat. They missed that final date. You can then go through and expire their applications, meaning that would prevent them from being able to submit it. They missed the deadline. And then this is also such a wonderful feature that we just added recently, which is the ability to export the applications. Woohoo! What if we need to get them out of the system? So from here, I can export them all out and include all of their attachments. So as your applicant is filling out the application, if you require any maybe extra information, they need to submit a report or maybe their budget and things like that. So if they add any documents while they are creating the application and submit it, you can also export all of that and include that in the export. Notice that option there to include the attachments. Then it's also going to ask if you'd like to bundle them together in the PDF version. So again, really nice feature that we added here just recently in our latest release. And that comes directly from requests from you, our customers, as you've been asking for ways to be able to process a little faster and with a little more ease. So let's take a look at one of our submitted applications here. I thought I'd show you a way of being able to kind of filter right onto that. Let's go in and specifically look at one that's submitted. All right, I'm going to pull open the Clean Air Task Force. At this point, we're in our process, and this is just simply an application. It's not approved yet, but as Amy mentioned, you can configure the system so that application forms, when they're submitted, they automatically become approved. Mine is not. Mine does need someone to take a look at it. This action buttons that's over here on the right side gives me the option of reviewing it. So then I can advance it forward and create the proposal record. Again, right now it's simply just an application. From this application, I can view it. So if I want to take a look, almost as if I was out on Spectrum. So this is how they filled out the form. You can view this at any time, all the various tabs. Now, of course, this one has a supplemental page. They haven't filled that one out yet, but we can see the various information that they have filled out. Notice we also get a print right here. So earlier I just showed you how you can print them in mass or more than one. But if you need to print just a single, you can do that from here. Let's go back into our application form. All right, so submitted application. So from here, there's of course a lot of different things that you can view, such as the details related to that and also the applicant themselves. We try to make your due diligence a little easier. Jill's a big fan of working smart, not hard. So my applicant comes into the system as a constituent record. From here, I can see Charity Evaluator has ran. That is a wonderful feature that's built right into GE NXT. What we do is we'll validate that 501c3 and make sure they're in good standing, that they are current, and that they're in good standing with the IRS and everything. So we kind of help with a little bit of your due diligence and do that for you automatically. It comes right with the system. So from here, I'm looking at the recipient's constituent record. I can pop right back into that application from here, do any sort of review that I might need to, and look at all of the items. The profile, of course, is going to have various information based on the pages that they filled out on the application. But honestly, I think it's a little easier to look at the application through this lens here and view it from here. But that profile just gives you another option of seeing the values that were entered by the applicant. Once this has been approved and done with our internal review, I can change it to reviewed. That then updates this review log up at the top with the username, the date, and the time. Now it's ready to turn into an actual proposal record. You can come up with your various proposal types. At this point, I can assign a default fund. We can inherit the characteristics from our applicant and from the fund if we need to. Just a reminder, characteristics are neat, nice fields, kind of user-defined fields that you can add to the system to be able to run reports or segment. All right, so at this point, we've created the proposal record. Not much changed on this screen. It did update the status to processed. It also updated a little more into that log, but also it added the proposal record. So this is where you want to kind of train your eyes to look, because now we have a proposal record that's associated to this application. The proposal record is where kind of all the magic happens. You can decide if you want to open this up for web funding. What that does is enable it to receive donations through Spectrum. Do you want to add any project costs, finances, everything under the financial details? Here we can add the various funds to the system or to the proposal. You can have more than one. I'm often asked about that. So let's see, let's throw a couple of them on here. That one doesn't have anything in it. Oh, added our budgeted amount. Which of course would be the amount asked. Let's see. Now, workflow, that's really what I want to spend some time on right now. Workflow is very important with regards to how this behaves out on Spectrum and within the system itself. Very important things about workflow. We have a lot of information about workflow in our knowledge base. There's also lots of information within our help files. So definitely become familiar with workflow, because it's kind of the key to success to making everything work the way that we want to. And what I mean by that, let's take a look real quick. Each one of these workflow steps can be assigned to internal staff, but they can also be assigned to the web user. And I'll talk about that here in just a few moments. The outcome and the step amount, probably the most important pieces of completing your workflow. There are system triggers kind of going on in the background, and they're looking for these workflow steps to be approved, completed, and have step amounts within. So as you're progressing the proposal through your internal processes, and in my case, I would have like a board review, each one of these has to be completed and approved, so that, and the reason why, I'll tell you here in a second, is this 6 month, and in my case, I need my web applicant to fill out that supplemental page. The triggers that make the supplemental page show up for the applicant out on the web portal is all related to this workflow. The previous steps have to be completed, and they have to have a step amount. So here we are now on the create grant. So if we were to just kind of pretend for a moment that this is the real world, we already did our internal reviews, we've put it in front of the board and they've approved. Now we're ready to create the grant record, because remember from that process, it's the grant record that's going to have the payment on it. It's the payment that I'm going to place on the check run that then goes to my financial system. From the financial system, that's where the award happens. So just to back that up, we need to make sure that we create the grant record that the payment will be on. Oh, that's because I was trying to do this quickly. I've exceeded the amount of the approved amount. So let's create that first. Okay. Now, the web applicant, again, because all of the other steps have been approved and completed, now my supplemental page, which it looks like they have a due date here at the end of the year that they need to be filling that out. That supplemental page, because I finished the steps ahead of it in the workflow, is now been triggered and will show up to the grant applicant. Let's go back out here into their awards. It's going to show up on their dashboard under their alerts. It's also going to show up here. And then Spectrum can also be configured to send emails to the applicant and email them and kind of shoulder tap and say, hey, you have a report to fill out. So hopefully all of that made sense. Workflow is the key to success to getting your supplemental pages to work appropriately, show up for the applicant, and also send them a reminder. All right, so now let's jump into how to create the form. That application form that we just took a look at. Actually, I want to show you guys one that I created for our time together. This one right here. This is an example of an application form that one of our clients was using, and I thought, boy, that's a really great candidate to show off while we're doing one of our Let's Talk solution times. So as you can see, it has a variety of pages. And they have added these narratives, including some links. These are graphics or pictures that they put into the page, the form. Don't get dizzy, I'm going to scroll down here. And then they have kind of a field that people are mandatory. They have to fill out. They have to check this box. We're going to see how to do all this in just a moment. I'm kind of showing you guys the baked cake before we talk about the ingredients. The cover page, required fields, fields that have to be filled out. You can denote that while you're building the fields for the page. These here that are auto-populating, those are great examples of when you can map fields. So that makes things, of course, much more efficient. Any questions, any sort of information that you're gathering, you can do things like associate drop-down boxes. You can have different sizes of fields, small text, large text, different types of fields, those that are just free text versus those that might be more like $1 or a financial amount. Could be something like a phone number or an email address. The program budget is empty right now. That's because in a few moments, we're going to hop back into GE, and together we're going to create that budget page. And then lastly, they want folks to upload and attach their budgets and other various files. That, of course, is a special type of field, and we'll see that in a few moments too. So I wanted to show you guys what we're going to work on. We need to finish this program budget. All right, so how I got here was online apps in the online app directory. Let's go into our configuration. Lots of things to see here. I'll highlight a few of the things that we've got at your fingertips, such as being able to preview the application. This is a super neat feature. So as you're building it, you can come back here to the main page and preview the application and kind of see it through the lens of how your applicants will be viewing it on Spectrum. This should look pretty much exactly the same of what we were just viewing. So from here, you can preview it. Let's talk about a few of these options that we're seeing here on the page, on the various tiles. Ooh, before I go too far ahead, talk about copying an application. Again, you heard me say Jill's a big fan of work smart, not hard. If you have applications that you've created that are going to be very similar, or maybe you're reusing them pretty much year after year, not too much has changed, you can certainly, rather than editing the existing, go in and just make a copy. And so instead of starting from scratch, you've already got a lot of the configurations already set up, and maybe just change a few things. So that's a good way of being able to recreate what you're doing year after year without having to start completely over. So the profile configuration here, you heard Amy mention we do have the ability to automatically process the application. Maybe I don't need an internal review. We just want it to come right on in as processed. That can kind of make things a little more streamlined. You can apply a default fund. What's the cycle type? So with competitive grants, a lot of times there are periods are cyclical. So when do we want to have different stages? What are the start and end times? You can be very specific on exactly how you want those periods to be. Web settings. So this is how it's going to appear out on Spectrum. That name. The name you're seeing here in the background is really more like the system name for it. You can have a completely different name of how it shows up out in Spectrum. Do you want it to be password protected? Maybe only folks that you invite that you want to come into Spectrum and apply for it. So you can put a password on it. Maybe I'm still working on it. I don't want it to show up on Spectrum yet. I'm still developing it. So we can kind of keep it internal only while you're developing. Allow multiple applications. Is it going to be featured? Earlier, when I was taking you through that applicant experience, there was one of those tiles that said featured. So I mentioned, how do you promote applications? And I'd show you where that's at. And that's this little checkbox right here that says featured. And then submit email copy. So what we're saying here is, does someone at your organization need to be notified when someone applies and submits to this application? You can put their email address in there. We're going to come back to the pages in just a few moments. We're going to spend a lot of time there. Scoring, if you have scoring related to, and this is kind of thinking of your committees, you can assign review groups to your application, and then of course the various committees. That then makes it so that when reviewing, when the rounds are open, that your reviewers can log into Spectrum, the web portal, and do their reviewing. Any messages, descriptions, and instructions. This, of course, is what we want to appear out on Spectrum. And so before, this is kind of a neat feature because this used to live in Spectrum. So you had to be like a system admin or an application admin to be able to go in and create these page descriptions. We have now pulled these into GE to kind of make that a little easier. So then you can create the various narratives for how that's going to appear out on Spectrum. Okay, so that is our application record itself for that form. Let's talk about, creating it. Earlier, we were looking at the life cycle, and I mentioned that there's usually a period where you're kind of preparing. So you want to kind of plan the application form. What do we want on here? How will they be answering? Are we going to have any follow-up requests? So in other words, are we going to need a supplemental page? Things like that. So we usually encourage you to plan the application form before you just jump in and start editing and creating it. A lot of our folks that are successful with their application forms tend to start in Word. I love that idea. So maybe it's easier for you to get out a fresh Word document and just start planning the application form there, or maybe even a pen and paper, just sketch it out. And think about those things. What is going to be required? What kind of data are we gathering? And then you can jump in and start building that application form. Am I going to go ahead and copy one? As I mentioned before, maybe we have an application we've used in the past, or I need to start with a new one. Another nice thing is you can copy pages. I'm going to show that in a few moments, where you can go in and copy pages out of other application forms. Maybe you've got a standard page that you're always adding to all your applications. Just go ahead and bring that on in. And then to be able to add the various fields and configure them. In a few moments, we're going to jump into those fields and we're going to take a look at the various types of configurations that we can add to the fields, such as calculations, or maybe they need to be conditional, and we'll take a look at that. And then we'll jump in and create the layout. So first we're going to build the fields and talk about what we need to add to the form itself, the page, and then we'll take a look at the layout. Luckily, as you heard Amy say, we have tried to make this as low code as possible. We want everyone at the organization to be comfortable with building application forms. So hopefully after today, you definitely feel much more empowered with creating your forms. Once we have all of the build done, then we can take a look at those various types of configurations that I went over a few moments ago, such as, is it going to be open-ended or cyclical? What do we want on the web settings? Are we assigning a review committee? And then those various messages and descriptions. And then we'll deploy it. And again, that's just as simple as clicking that button that says make available on Spectrum, make available on web. Okay, so let's dive into these various pages. Before I do that, I mentioned something, so I'm going to back up just a smidge because I want to talk about these field mappings and the predefined fields, because those are going to come into play here in a few moments. Field mappings, we can use this editor to create some predefined fields and also the field mappings. So what we're saying is, as the data that's coming into the application, what data that they are filling out do we want to kind of predetermine or pre-autofill and things like that. And so this is your way of being able to map the fields so that that information will just automatically be populated. Huge time saver. The other one is predefined fields. So I kind of call this the library of fields. And so again, you've heard Jill say, work smart, not hard. Maybe there's some fields that we're using over and over and over again. And by fields, we're talking to the fields on the pages of the application form. So the data fields, what my applicants are going to be using to enter information into. And so maybe we have some that repeat. We use these over and over and over again. So if by creating this field library, you're going to see in a few moments that when I'm adding a new field to my form, to my page, it's going to ask me, is this a predefined field or are you adding a brand new one? So that's kind of really nice to be able to create kind of a little library of fields so that when I'm creating my form, it makes it a lot more efficient. Okay. Now we're ready. Let's dive into these pages and talk here about adding an existing page or copying an existing page. Heard me mention that one earlier. If you have pages that you're using within your forms and you're noticing that it's repeatable, so maybe such things as they're filling out a page that's about themselves. You're gathering their name, their address, and that's the type of page that you will use consistently in all your application forms. So in that case, maybe you want to add an existing page. The add existing page. So what's the difference between adding an existing page and copying an existing page? The adding of an existing page means I am going to use this page in this application form, and its source remains the same. So what if I need to change something on that existing page? Maybe we're going to add a new field. Now we're going to start gathering email addresses or things like that on that bio information. So I want to add that email address. I can do that in one place, and it will cascade across where that existing page is being used. So that's the power of using an existing page. If I copy an existing page, I'm literally doing that. I'm creating a copy of it. The source one is going to stay the same. So that's a great idea when maybe an existing page pretty much fits my needs, but maybe I just need to tweak a handful of fields or make it unique for this use. So in that case, I want to copy it so then I can add those changes and I don't hurt or I don't affect that original or that existing page. So both of those can be really powerful and time savers when you're creating your pages on your forms. So as I mentioned, we want to kind of finish out our, we didn't finish the program budget. Let's go ahead and talk about these various things that we're seeing here. This page, I've added it to the system. You can have separate system names. So this would be like behind the scenes. What do we call this page internally? Versus what I want it to say out on Spectrum. There are various types of pages. You heard me allude to that earlier. Probably for the most part, you're going to use standard pages, but notice that there are a variety of different types, such as addendums. Addendums are fund-driven. The preliminary page or reference page, maybe you have pages that you only want to have show up to the reviewers. And then here are the supplementals. We offer up to 10 different ones. So that again is kind of depends on thinking back to when you're planning your application form. Do we want to have some information that would be considered supplemental based on how that proposal is working through the workflow, making its way through the workflow? And so supplemental pages, again, are triggered by workflow. We talked about that earlier. Mine's is going to be a standard page. Active, maybe you're still working on it and developing it. Like in my case, maybe I don't want this to show up out there yet on the web portal. Is it something that we do not want our reviewers to see? Maybe there's information that you're gathering that's sensitive, need to keep it preserved within the system, don't want my reviewers to see that. Or maybe it's information that the reviewers, it's not part of their review. So you can hide those pages from your reviewers. And then of course, there's the sort order. Here's a little tip and trick from Jill. When I am creating my pages, I tend to number them in 5s. And the reason why is so that I have room if I need to, after I develop the application form, and then I remember later, oh, I forgot to add the such and such page. Well, if you number these in sequential order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you're going to have to rearrange all of your numbers so that you can insert a new page. So I tend to number them by 5s. So then I have room if I need to insert another page, and I'm not going to kind of mess up my order there. So that's just a little tip. All right, let's get back into our budget page here. So we looked at the edit. We're going to skip layout and go to fields. We'll come back to layout in just a moment. That's kind of the fun part. We still need to talk about these fields. What do we want on this page? So from here, these are the application fields. This is one way of adding application fields. There's another way that I'll talk about in just a moment. This way might be more familiar to our classic users. Those of you out there that have been using GE for a long time, you're familiar with our admin view or our classic. Now in classic, when you're building your application fields, it presents it to you in this grid. This is probably going to look really familiar to you. So this is still here. If this is how you're comfortable, I'm going to show you a different view to look at the fields in a few moments. But if this is how you're used to it, you can certainly use this screen to add your fields for the form. Here's where I can choose new field, or as you heard me talk about earlier, here's those predefined. So this is, of course, what I call my field library. You can have various different types of categories for those. Maybe this is organization related. So I'm going to have things like, their address, their city, state, zip, that type of stuff. Very standard. I use this all the time. So you might as well make it a predefined field and add it to your field library. Or you can start from scratch. Add a new field. You're going to be asked what type of field that is, as far as does it need to be text, is it number, currency, all of the various types of choices that you have here. One that I want to definitely point out to you is this file upload, this one right there. When we were walking through Spectrum, walking through the web portal as if we were an applicant, I mentioned this attach files tab, this upload file. That's the choice you need to make if that's the type of tab on that page for that field. Okay, these right here, these various types of fields that I have added, I want these to calculate. So I'm going to ask my applicant for the amount they're requesting, how much they have already raised, how much they're going to contribute, and then have that aggregate, have that do some calculations here. So how do I get that to happen? Some of you might be familiar with that, but if this is new for you, when you're working with the fields, you have a lot of different choices in order to make them work the way that you want to, such as, is it an active field? Do we want to make it required? Again, back there on my form, you saw a bunch of the fields that were kind of highlighted in red and had a little red asterisk. That little checkbox is how you make fields required. Do I want that field to show up in my summary? So in other words, when we're summarizing or looking at a summary view of that application, do you want that information to pull in there? Those three right there are probably the ones I see used very, very often, very frequently. This read only on web, that one I activated because remember, this is an aggregate field. So I want it to do the calculation and certainly the applicant can see that, but I don't want them to be able to type in there. So I can prevent that there. Are there any conditions? So conditional fields are like, did other things activate this field to show up? Such as, let's say you're asking if, are you going to be partnering with other organizations on this? Or are you a valid 501c3? If they answer that yes, then this field will show up. So those are examples of how you can use conditions. What I really want to get to is this calculations here. So I mentioned before that I want this field to aggregate for me, and how you build those calculations is kind of an example here on this field, we have different types of examples, of course, that we could explore. But in my case, I'm saying, take that budget information, such as what they are contributing, what they already have, add that together, and then subtract the amount that they're requesting so that I can get the total amount. So once all of that has been built, now let's go back to our form. And pull those into the layout. So again, I'm going to build the fields or define all my fields. And now I'm ready to pull them into the layout. This is the exciting part. I think this is the fun part. Now that I've created my various fields, I am simply going to drag the field labels and drag the field entry box. So that's for the applicant to be able to type in their amount. So we're just dragging and dropping these in. Look at how easy that is. Now there's lots of things here to help with this. Okay, so I mentioned before that there's other places that you can add fields. Here's an example here of where you can add a new field or a predefined. So if you don't want to do it from that grid view, you can simply do it from the layout view. This will take you through the same screens I showed a moment ago. Let's save that. You can back up the page. This is also a really nice feature for when you're developing. If we back up the page, what happens is I now have something I can restore to. This is so helpful. So as you're developing, if you make a mistake or you want to try something you haven't done before, back it up. Because then if you make a mistake, you can simply just go back to that previous version and you didn't lose your work. The validate page is going to make sure that you have used all of the fields that are over in your field list. I know some of you are building some pretty complicated and intricate and sophisticated pages. You may have a really long list of fields. You can get kind of lost in it as you're building it. The validate will make sure that you did not forget any fields to add. So from here, there's all sorts of types of editing. pretty familiar things here like you would see in Word. Here is an option to be able to add any graphics or pictures. So if I want to bring in a file, you can do that from that option there. Save it. Let's see, let's go back into that application and take a look at it now that I've added those program budget fields. There they are. And I've made that available to my form out here on Spectrum. Let's refresh that. And now we've got our budget. You can see how that automatically did our calculations for us as we just built. Okay, so let's wrap up. If we could bring our slides back on, Amy. Where can you get help for this? There's lots of places that you can find some help for this, such as our knowledge base. We have some great information out there on our knowledge base, articles that you can review and read. And then, as I mentioned, we are in process right now of creating the on-demand training courses. We're in flight with those right now, and it's going to be all about grant and scholarship application management. Everything that I just showed you today, we are developing training content for. So I know a lot of you out there are probably taking notes and trying to take screenshots. We record this session, so look for that out on our knowledge base. And then we also are going to be deploying some new training courses here in the next few months. So everything related to what you saw today is documented out on the knowledge base. Any questions?
Thank you, Jill. Are there any additional questions? Let's see, we did have some that were answered. One was, the most recent one was, is this going to be available? And yes, after a short period of time after this closes, it'll be downloaded and added to our knowledge base. So you can find all that detailed information there. And we did answer a few questions in flight. Are there any other additional questions we can help anyone with? I know that was a lot of information. And it can go quick. Please feel free to enter them in the Q&A box.
Hey, Amy, can I steal that share one more time? I guess I just thought of the show.
Sure.
Let's, since we got a few moments here, where are we talking about? Hopefully all of you are familiar with our knowledge base. Underneath the GENXT subject header here, you're going to find all sorts of information about using the web view, using the modern platform of our software, including supplemental pages. So everything I mentioned before, again, supplemental pages can be a little tricky. And so this will help guide you through how to create a supplemental page, and then also how to use the workflow so that it will trigger and make that supplemental page show up. So definitely, if supplemental pages are kind of your thorn in your side, take a look at this article about supplemental pages. Also, I showed you guys that you can select multiple submitted applications and process them in bulk. That includes being able to create a proposal batch. So we also have a nice article out here about how to create that proposal batch and be able to process a lot more efficiently. So definitely take a look at some of those knowledge base articles that we have out there. And then I'm going to go back to the home page, which outlines all of the various resources, including the training courses. So the Thinkific training courses is where you'll find our Learn Library full of all sorts of helpful videos that are all related to GE NXT and Classic. So there's lots of things out there. So hopefully you have a chance to take a look at all of our resources to help you.
Great. And right on that same screen is where you can get to the Let's Talk Solutions recordings that you'll be able to find. Here, I'll go back to sharing my screen. So you can also find us on social media. Please link in with us, as well as follow us on Twitter. We do publish on YouTube as well. If you'd like to contact us, you can reach us at hello@npack.com. That comes into our sales and marketing team, and she forwards to all that need that information. And I want to thank everyone for coming today. This was a lot of information. Thank you, Jill. That was a great presentation. We will see you all again in September on Wednesday, September 21st for our next Let's Talk Solutions. Thanks, everyone.